Hi, my name is Michael Ormsby, and I chose to present on James Alderson. The case background, or James' experience, was that he was a hospital accountant in Montana. During his employment, he was approached by a member of the hospital's management group, Clyde Elder. Clyde asked James to create a second set of expense records. James knew that this request constituted fraud, and he refused to follow the request. Shortly after, James was fired from the hospital. James then went to file a wrongful termination suit and received important documentation that allowed him to file a lawsuit against the company on behalf of the government. The IMA lists 3 steps for resolution of ethical conduct, and we'll discuss how Mr. Alderson or James handled these 3 steps. First, James followed and he didn't follow the first step. Mr. Alderson did not contact his supervisor or any other superiors when the incident with Clyde occurred, and he did not report the incident. Second, James did actually take his case to the authorities for wrongful termination, and he also filed a lawsuit on behalf of the government. The second step, James followed this step, and he discussed the situation with Mr. Jessup, a former hospital administrator. This was critical in helping James file a lawsuit on behalf of the government. And James also hired a former Medicare auditor, Mr. Nicholas Bordeaux, and Mr. Bordeaux was very helpful in solving this case. Third, James followed this step. It took 3 years for him to get a lawyer, but Mr. Alderson eventually hired Stephen Menninger as his lawyer, and Mr. Menninger had experience with filing lawsuits on behalf of the government. And then Mr. Menninger was able to get the FBI involved, which helped get the case rolling. 3 years was definitely a long time. And then the case was moved to Florida because they have better laws for fraud. Next, I wanted to evaluate how James followed Dr. Barocco's article. Mr. Alderson acted quietly about the case from the beginning. Before he filed a lawsuit on behalf of the government, and he acted just like Barry Nealon in Dr. Barocco's article. Second, James used time to perform research and seek opportunities to build the case against the hospital giants, as they're called. Third, Mr. Alderson knew what the companies were doing was fraudulent, and he put everything he had at risk to get justice in return. He knew the risk and reward, and he knew that he was responsible for the outcome of this case. Fourth, Mr. Alderson chose to pick his battle against these healthcare companies because he knew it was wrong. And lastly, James bent the rules by hiding his lawsuit case from his friends and family. And I believe that he followed Dr. Barocco's advice from his article very well.